Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, the tragic story of a Parisian schoolgirl told through her own letters discovered years after her death in a Nazi concentration camp. The letters 16-year-old Louise Pikovsky wrote give us a bittersweet insight into the time. Her family today compare her to Anne Frank, whose wartime diary is regarded as a key text of the era. And sadly, Louise suffered the same tragic fate. The letters Louise sent to her teacher were discovered in a high school here in Paris, and a France 24 reporter helped piece together the story that we hope will inspire you. It's perhaps impossible for us today to imagine the horror Louise Pikovsky suffered in 1944 when she was killed. But her soul and her resilience shine through in her unique legacy of letters. The story of the Jewish girl, yellow star sewn onto her coat under Nazi orders, yet still smiling and excelling at her studies, is profoundly moving, and our researchers shed new light on a time when people were persecuted and deported to their deaths just because they were different. This report's by Stephanie Trouillard and Claire Williams.
Oh, mademoiselle, si vous vouliez me reparler de la joie, je suis sûre que nous ne pouvons apprécier le bonheur qu'après avoir souffert. Mais est-ce que la souffrance a des arrêts? Je finis par en douter. Je vous embrasse affectueusement, Louise. I've got the same problem. Est-ce que la souffrance a des arrêts?
Judith lost 14 members of her family in the Holocaust. One of them was Louise Pikovsky, her cousin. 7 decades later, she's discovering letters Louise wrote to her schoolteacher.
When I saw them, my first reaction was, wow, something that comes out of our family. That was my first reaction. And then when I started reading these letters, I realized that here is an intelligent girl who should never, ever have disappeared. I wondered what would have happened to her, given that she was such a good student. That's it.
Louise went to school here, at the Lycée Jean de La Fontaine in the 16th arrondissement of Paris. In 2010, this maths teacher found a bunch of letters when she was clearing out an old classroom cupboard.
J'ai trouvé un petit mot. Là, nous sommes tous arrêtés. Alors là, c'était vraiment absolument saisissant. C'était un petit mot où Louise Pikovsky avait mis avec ses affaires qui ont été amenées à Madame Malingret. Et elle met « J'aimerais les retrouver si je reviens un jour ». Alors là, c'était vraiment... On a l'impression que le temps s'était arrêté.
Miss Malingret was Louise's Latin and Greek teacher. The pair corresponded during the summer of 1942. She held onto Louise's letters until 1988, when she decided to give them to the school as it celebrated its 50th anniversary. And she also wrote about Louise in a special edition brochure.
Elle était blonde, avec de grands yeux bleus qui brillaient comme des étoiles. Elle habitait Boulogne, 50 rue Georges Sorel. Louise était une très bonne élève, en particulier en mathématiques où elle venait au secours de ses compagnes moins douées. Je me suis sentie comme si on m'avait passé un relais de tous les professeurs qui avaient pu connaître Louise, à commencer par mademoiselle Malingret, et sûrement à leur regret, leur déchirement, qu'il n'y ait rien qui puisse perpétuer le souvenir de Louise. Et moi, c'est vraiment ce que je voulais faire.
When it was time for her to retire, Christine Lersch didn't know what to do with her discovery. She discussed keeping the letters safe with another teacher at school. Khalida Adshi was moved by what she read, and so decided to ask France 24 for help finding out who Louise was and what happened to her. We started with the letters.
Louise parle énormément de ses interrogations sur la foi, de sa vie quotidienne, mais curieusement très peu sur les événements de la guerre, enfin les événements horribles qui découlent de la guerre. Par contre, nous apprenons dans une de ses lettres que son père a été arrêté et interné ici même, à Drancy.
Between 1941 and 1944, the German army used this housing estate northeast of Paris as an internment camp. Louise's father, Abraham, was sent here in July 1942 after he was arrested alongside 13,000 Jews in the infamous Veldiv roundup.
Chère mademoiselle, je suis bien heureuse, mademoiselle. Nous avons des nouvelles de papa. Il n'a pas quitté Drancy. Nous pouvons envoyer un colis de vêtements. C'est très émouvant de lire cette lettre puisque on sent la charge émotionnelle à l'écriture et aussi une pointe d'humour. Je viens de le porter à Paris. Naturellement, j'ai eu de la chance de me trouver à côté de personnes que je n'aime pas. Car il est permis de ne pas aimer, n'est-ce pas?
Louise's father was released from the Drancy camp in August 1942. In her letters, Louise does not explain how. Despite the threat facing France's Jewish community, Louise carried on her studies, just like the other girls in her class.
Tous les ans, nous avions droit à la photo de classe. Me voici placée ici et ma camarade Louise est ici.
We got in touch with Madeleine after we saw her name signed on the back of the class photo. Louise and Madeleine sat next to each other for 2 years.
C'était une jeune fille très posée, très sage, très intellectuelle, réfléchissant beaucoup.
Yearbooks show Louise was top of the class in almost every subject. Madeleine believes her classmates' intelligence and maturity helped her create a bond with Miss Malengray.
Nous savions que mademoiselle Malengray l'avait prise sous son aile. Et elle aurait voulu, d'ailleurs, je crois, la prendre chez elle pour la protéger et qu'elle ne soit pas déportée, finalement. Mais elle a voulu rester avec sa famille, ce qui est tout à fait normal.
One day, Louise didn't show up to school. Madeleine never saw her again.
Je n'avais pas imaginé un seul instant que cette histoire pourrait ressurgir au bout de 70 ans. Et très, très longtemps, ce souvenir m'a un peu hanté, je dois dire.
We searched the online database of the Yad Vashem Holocaust Remembrance Center and found a note asking for information about the family. It was written by Claude Counor when she visited Yad Vashem in Jerusalem in 1983. Claude and Louise's parents were cousins.
C'était une famille très unie. Et enfin, il semblait qu'il n'y avait pas de heurts dans la famille, que c'était des gens très calmes, très conciliants.
In August 1943, they spent a sunny afternoon together at Claude's home in Joinville-le-Pont, near Paris.
La maman Brunette, ma mère, ma sœur, Yetta, Louise et moi. Donc c'était une belle journée, sûrement. Et on a dû goûter ensemble, quand même, malgré les restrictions.
Louise's cousin was lucky. Somehow her family was not arrested. The memory of that summer's day stayed with her.
Bien que ce n'était pas de la famille proche, c'était quand même quelqu'un que j'avais connu. Et je me souvenais qu'on... Et puis je vous ai dit que je comparais leur situation avec la mienne.
On January 22nd, 1944, French police knocked on the Pikovskys' door. They gave them 1 hour to pack their belongings. Louise had time to race to Miss Malengray's house to return her Bible and write one last letter.
Nous sommes tous arrêtés. Je vous laisse les livres qui ne sont pas à moi et aussi quelques lettres que je voudrais retrouver si je reviens un jour. Je pense à vous, au père, à mademoiselle Arnold et je vous embrasse. Louise.
Father, mother and all 4 children were driven to the Drancy internment camp. Record cards were drawn up for each of them. Less than 2 weeks later, they were listed for deportation on Convoy 67. Along with 2,200 others, the Pikovskys were bused to Bobigny train station. In World War II, Bobigny was the main point of departure for trains headed from France to the death camps. After a 3-day journey in wagons made for animals, they arrived at Auschwitz in Poland. There are no records of the Pikovsky family at Auschwitz, which suggests they were sent straight to the gas chambers. Louise was 16 years old. So the letters don't end up forgotten in another school cupboard. The teachers donated them to the Shoah Memorial in Paris. They're now kept safe in the archives. Anyone who visits the memorial can read them.
Voilà, donc en moins d'une dizaine de lettres, on a vraiment la vie de Louise qui déroule. C'est un petit dossier, mais c'est très, très dense. Et puis cette Bible, bien entendu, qu'elle a remise. Et puis au-delà de ça, voilà, c'est également la réaction de la professeure, d'avoir, évidemment gardé les découpements, mais de les avoir conservés pendant toutes ces années, presque comme des reliques, quoi, dans cette armoire. Là aussi, ça prouve un bel attachement du professeur envers son élève, quoi. C'était au-delà, je pense, d'une relation prof-élève.
The discovery of the letters has not only revived Louise's memory. Her story led us to find other girls who were deported while they were at Jean de La Fontaine. After hours searching the school's archives, we came across an old cardboard box. Inside, we found pupils' birth certificates dating back to World War II. At the time, parents had to give the school a copy to enroll their children.
C'est une preuve irréfutable que ces élèves qui ont été déportés, ces élèves du lycée Jean de La Fontaine, étaient scolarisés ici et déportés vers des camps de la mort.
Khalida wanted to offer her pupils a different kind of history lesson. She asked them to search the Yad Vashem Holocaust Remembrance website using information from the birth certificates. 16-year-olds Roman and Colombe found more victims who went to school at Jean de La Fontaine.
Donc, en tapant les noms, on est tombé sur une jeune fille qui s'appelle Berthe Baumann. Et donc on a découvert qu'elle s'était fait déporter.
En fait, au début des recherches, on n'avait qu'une hâte, c'était de trouver une élève pour que nos recherches aboutissent à quelque chose. Sauf qu'au moment où on l'a trouvée sur le site internet, on a réalisé qu'en fait, elle avait été déportée et qu'elle était morte là-bas. Et du coup, on était un peu émus sur le moment. Tout d'un coup, on était plus tristes que contents de l'avoir trouvée.
Ouais.
They helped identify 5 deportees from Jean de La Fontaine. Soon, their names will appear on a remembrance plaque at the school.
Ça permet de faire en sorte que les gens se souviennent de ces personnes plutôt que de les oublier avec le temps.
And Louise's words, written 7 decades ago, are being read again today.
La joie est bien en nous, quel que soit le degré de notre souffrance. Nous pouvons toujours en trouver encore un peu, en pensant que notre tâche n'est jamais terminée.
Je comprends maintenant ce texte latin que j'ai traduit en 5e et dont je ne me rappelle plus que ceci. Un homme ayant perdu ses biens, dont les filles ont été emmenées en esclavage, et qui dit « On ne m'a pas pris ma richesse, car ma richesse est en moi ».
Our reporter Claire Williams is here. Claire, this is a remarkable story and an important, vital discovery from a time when hatred and prejudice divided Europe.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it can be easy to overlook the fact that this was only 75 years ago. It's actually relatively recent history. This happened in Europe. Europe was a very different place in the 1940s. This was happening in Paris, Nazi-occupied Paris. And what I think we need to be crucial to remember is that many of the people who can tell us what it was like to be in Nazi-occupied Paris, to see Nazis roaming around the streets of the French capital, people of that age. Louise would have been 90 this year. These people are not going to be around for much longer. These stories need to be told now, otherwise it's going to be too late.
A painstaking process, though, piecing together this remarkable story.
I think painstaking, and definitely we needed patience. What's interesting is that there is a lot of these archives are still available. You know, birth certificate. If you want to find out who your great-grandmother's sister-in-law was, you can find that out in France. You can go and find their birth certificate. You can go and find out police records about them. You can find their marriage certificate. These archives are available. The Germans also, or the Nazis, they were meticulous about bureaucracy. They were absolutely meticulous, and all those records we can't see all of them, but a lot of them are available. So if you've got a bit of patience and time, and you're happy to go through a painstaking process, then you can find stories. Meeting
Louise's old school friends, that must have been a remarkable thing to witness, to listen to, the things they had to say.
I think it was moving for everyone. When we did those interviews with Madeleine River, for instance, I mean, it was emotional for her. She told us that when we called her first, since she spoke to us on the phone, she had trouble sleeping. She had been thinking about Louise and had brought up these memories from 70 years earlier, and she was happy, though. It was one of those things. She felt that justice had been done with this project, and yet at the same time, it was clearly emotional for her, and it was this, like, bittersweet, I think is the word, bittersweet.
And is that the kind of feeling you're left with about this whole project?
I think so. I think, yeah, bittersweet is the way I feel, because on the one hand, when you find out that a 16-year-old who went to a high school not too far away from the studios at France 24 was deported and died and killed in Auschwitz, that is bitter. The sweetness, though, is that we can still, at the moment, because people who knew Louise are still alive, we can still tell her story, but there isn't much time left. These stories need to get told now.
OK, well, it's out there now, and it is a remarkable piece. Claire, thank you very much indeed. And thank you for watching. You can see this again, of course, via our website, france24.com. There is also a special web doc detailing Louise Pikovsky's story. We've called it If I Ever Come Back. These words written by Louise herself in one of her last letters. This is Reporters on France 24. Thanks for watching, and do stay with us.